Mónica, ¿tú me puedes decir si estoy compartiendo ahora?
Sí, yo veo la presentación ahora.
Y ahí ves la presentación.
Sí, está todo en pantalla grande.
Perfecto.
Mónica, all yours.
Super. Then, hi all. Thank you, Sarah, for inviting Arcadia. I think it was a super nice talk. But I think that now it's like time to add a little bit of sex and gender perspective into science. That's why we invited Nataly. Let me explain a little bit of Nataly. Nataly holds a PhD in sociology from the Universitat of Barcelona, but right now she's working as a postdoctoral researcher at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, and she focused her research on the social impact of artificial intelligence. But for me, it's a pleasure to invite Nataly today because I think we started working like at BSc more or less at the same time back in 2017. I mean, I started like as a master's student, but she started as a postdoc. But the thing is that I saw her and other mates from BSc like creating a project called Bioinfo for Women from scratch. And this project wants to promote the STEM careers, mostly bioinformatics, in women. So that's why I think that can be like a really nice talk to hear. So all yours, Nataly. Thank you very much for being here.
No, thank you to you, Monica, for the invitation and to listen to my input today. And we will talk about the sex and gender perspective. And to start this topic, I want to think about the evolution and the construction of this story in the way we understand the science and our vision of reality, and how our culture, our law, and society in general is configured. So as we can see, if we think the evolution of the humanity is have a perspective point of view regarding men, and this androcentric model referred to the propensity to center the society around men and the men needs and the priorities and their values, and relegate women as the border. And also this point of view position men as the gender neutral standard, and while making women as a gender specific option. So this androcentric model exists in all the fields of the study and cultural expression, of course, including art, science, medicine, law, story, and media, social media. And science is not different of this androcentric vision of the world. So we need to think about how we imagine the science and scientists. And for example, in an experiment that is done since 1980, we saw that only 8% of the students draw a women as a scientist, and the majority have another stereotype, another representational cultural vision. So after 30 years, this situation likely changed a little bit, and 33% of the students start to draw a women as scientists. But we also have right now and still women underrepresentation are in the underrepresented, and also how we have this problem of to solve. So I base of this presentation in the Gender Innovation in Science and Engineer project that is Stanford, and Londa Shivenger, the professor who lead this project, and determined that we need to fix obviously the number of women in science, as we know, to fix the institution by different programs, as Monica mentioned, the Bioinfo for Women project that we have, and fix the knowledge that this is important things. So we will focus in that, and why we need to be aware of this androcentric perspective, and why we refer to that for the knowledge and in science. So before to continue, it's important to highlight the concept of sex and gender, and how we define that. The sex refers to the biological attribute in human and animals, and is primarily associated with the physical feature, including the chromosome, gene expression, hormone levels, and reproductive anatomy. And this is usually categorized as male and women, female and male, sorry, but it also include the intersex category. The gender refers to the psychological, social, and cultural factors and shape our attitude, our behaviors, our stereotype, and also the technology and our knowledge. So gender includes the dimension of social cultural norms, the rules, the identities, and the relationship that we have. This is a multidimensional and may include women, men, transgender, genderqueer, gender diverse individuals, not binary, and other categories. So gender is a social constructor that have variation from the society to society and also change over the time, as we can see. And also another concept that is important to highlight is the sexual orientation, that is the refer the person's sexual identity and how we feel attract, and include the cisgender, asexual, pansexual, LGTB, plus other distinct orientation. So it's important to pay attention in the distinction of this concept, to consider and not miss the opportunity to make research consider these variables, these perspectives. So why is it so important to consider and to include this perspective in research? Basically, because if not, we will have research that not include many people, and we have dangerous consequence for the part of the population. So science is better with sex and gender perspective. Imagine if, for example, if you don't test prostate cancer drugs on female, only for female cell sample, of create anti-smoking campaign only for men. We need to include this perspective in all the process of our research to have an excellent treatment, drugs, and develops. So we need to understand that the sex and gender difference in health, particularly in symptoms, biomarkers, response to treatment, to drug, as we mentioned, with a side effect, and different risk of factor of vulnerability. So if we check the clinical trial participation, we can see that there are female are underrepresented in the preclinical trial, and if we check the different areas, the sex is the majority is unspecified, and when it's specified, the majority are male rates that are used in different analysis, and these have consequence, of course, in the results. And also the clinical trial participation in different area, women are underrepresented, and this is not surprising because the androcentric bias in our research is expressed and have an exclusion of women in the different approaches and to search different problems. So one example is the analysis that the Food and Drug Administration in United States market discovered that 10 drugs, eight of these 10 drugs have a side effect of women and will withdraw from the market because obviously have a negative impact in the health of women. So I want to highlight the work of Bernadine Healthy, that it was the first female director of the National Institute of Health, and they have a strong impact in the women health because when she was as director, established the Women Health Initiative and coordinate this a study to analyze disease well-being of women and have a new insight to prevention and treatment in cardiovascular disease, cancer, and osteoporosis in women. And as you can see, have an improvement of the quality and the number of deaths of women that have a number, a number of death higher of men. So we have a recommendation, likely in different area, how to include the trial in women's, and how we need to specify the data. We include the representation of and have a specific attention also in the analysis, design, and dissemination of our results. We have different samples, and actually we have a lot of scientific evidence around the consideration of sex and gender difference in COVID analysis and clinical studies, and also in different diseases as Alzheimer and coronary health and other treatment. So we need to pay attention in the preclinical data that we collect, the clinical and the design of new drugs, and how this is represented in the market to don't have side effect in women, and how this affects in the artificial intelligence fields. This have a consequence in bias in the data, and later we can translate this problem to the artificial intelligence. So algorithms obviously have the double power to magnify inequalities or reduce inequalities. So we can reduce inequality by integrating the sex and gender difference, and or we can magnify inequality if we doesn't pay attention in this bias. So imagine if we have a medical researcher that use medical image to train data to recognize diagnosis disease, but this data that doesn't include the sex and gender perspective to distinguish population, and the data is only collected from men. Then the computer prediction, of course, will don't recognize disease when asked for diagnosis for women. So we have different bias in our research, as we mentioned, the historical and all the bias during the statistic, the representation, the aggregation bias, and we need to evaluate to don't have this type of negative impact that show, for example, in facial recognition, that are dark problem with dark females, and also with robots, the design of robots, and Google Translate and other tools that are developed. So we need to identify the unbalanced data set to have prediction, and to also to train correctly our models. So this is highly important, of course, for the second side effect that we mentioned, and the problem that's represented for the population. But it's also good to highlight that the European Commission right now announced that it will be required to incorporate the sex and gender analysis. So when you will work in the future, and right now also in our proposal, we need to integrate the sex and gender dimension in the content research and innovation. So I recommend strongly this project that I mentioned of the Stanford, that have different sample and how we can integrate in science, medicine, engineer, and other field. And we need to pay attention, as we mentioned, in the European, for example, funding agencies, the policies that we apply in the government, the journal, and also we need to introduce this perspective in university and courses that in a curriculum like today, to share this perspective and develop methods of sex and gender analysis that have greater rigorous treatment and tools. So it's important to have a more responsible social needs and research excellence, and also to develop technology that have benefit in this citizen. So when we are working, we need to think about the sex perspective. For example, this is a methodology how we can introduce this perspective in our work. We need to think about the experiment that we are applying, the data, and if this is disaggregate by sex, and if it's not, we need to report because why not, and why is not important to sex different, and to include the different sources. Regarding gender, we need, if we are working with humans, we need to take into account the gender, also the data, how we disaggregate the different relations, how affect the context. And if we consider that is not important, we need to report also. So we need to have a gender inclusive research. We need to think about gender, to sex, and also intersectionality that I quickly mention, that is the overlapping of these different form of discrimination that mention sex and gender, but also the variable of age, socioeconomic status, sexuality, geographic location, and disabilities. So we need to think about this different point of view, sex, gender, and also how this variable interact, and how we can consider that in our research. We need to identify the problem, design in all the process, and the collection of the data in our analysis, and also the dissemination of our result if have sex and different results, and so on. So from the Bioinfo for Women Action, I don't know if it's okay of time, we are organizing different activities and also have different publication, books, journal, and also we are working not just in women, also we are working in transgender collective, and we are right now organizing a biohackathon to analyze the biomedical data repositories that have an impact in our studies, and to determine if there exists bias in the demographic categories as sex, age, and sex, age, and also the race, of course. So we know that it's not mandatory in the metadata, but we need to introduce this perspective and have recommendation. So to conclude, a call to action to think about your thesis, your project, and how if you consider the sex and gender dimension. If you don't define, you need to think if this is needs to be taken into account, and also think about the intersectionality and how could impact in our research and our data, the data collection, analysis, and dissemination. So thank you so much, and if you want to share some question, I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Nataly. I don't know if we have any questions, but let me start them. So, oh yes, thank you, Sarah. Then let me first ask you this question from Sarah Sherman. Nataly?
Yes.
Show on the stage, just one. Yeah, no. So Sarah said, I believe the gender bias in data reflects the historical and still continuing in many cases underrepresentation of women in different STEM fields. What measures do you think institutions can take to improve the diversity of researchers? Good one. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, of course. Okay, as we mentioned before, we need to fix different level, the number of women. So one measure could be, of course, the number of women that we have in different teams, also the position that they have, because it's not the same to say we have assistants in our department. We need to take into account the role, if they are principal investigator and senior researcher. And so one measure is, of course, the number, the roles, to fix the number of women in our institution. And also the European Commission asked to know if we have a plan of equality in our institution, okay, that guarantees that this perspective is included in our research and is taken into account. And if we have, for example, a sexual assessment procedure, and if we have different conciliation politics for family and research. So this is a measure that we need to take into account if we want to increase the number of women in the STEM fields. Yes.
Yeah, that's nice. I believe, of course, that as you are part of the BSc, I believe you are applying these rules to all the BSc. But are you applying as well these sex and gender, like let's say fighting these sex and gender bias into other Barcelona centers? Like, are you?
Right now, I'm a member of the Commission of Gender the Equality of the BCC, and we are working specifically in our institution because we have a lot of things to do. Of course, we have a lot of connection with different organizations, and we are open to help. But specifically, we are not working in other with other organization.
Yeah, no, I believe this will take time, but what the work that you are doing is really, really nice. I
Yeah.
think maybe I think I have like a small question. I think we are on time. It's not like a question, it's more an opinion. So I saw that you went very fast, but you show some pictures of robots. Recently,
Yeah.
I saw that they are creating robots, but with boobs, let's say, like looking like a girl. What do you think about this? Shall we just create robots with looking as a woman as well? Do you think this is like bad in the way that we are putting as an object a woman as well, like we are characterizing a robot to be a woman just only to have boobs? Or what do you think
Yeah.
about this? Because I saw it recently
Yeah,
in a way.
maybe I can share, I don't know, the screen, because I can see. Okay. Yes, of course. There are a lot of research right now about the design of robots, and the scientific evidence to say it in this way. We should evade to give a social stereotype to robots. And also we have a different sample on how we need to lead with for example, the assistants, like Alexa, Siri, and other Cortana and voice assistant. And of course we need to introduce this sex and gender perspective to avoid to repeat the stereotype. And there are a wonderful example that called Q voice, that is a neutral voice that it was designed for by researcher and also different yes people that have the objective to have a neutral image and voice, and avoid the sex and gender stereotype in our technology. So yes, it's good to pay attention of that, of course, Monica.
That's
It's
nice.
important.
That's nice to hear. Super nice. Thank you very much, Natalie. I think you have another question, but you will receive that through the messages, because now it's time for another talk. So
Great.
thank you very much, Natalie, again.
Thank you
Now
too.
it's time for Rishabh Lohia. If you want, Natalie, you can just quit your video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you again, Natalie.
Thank you.
So now it's time for Rishabh. Let me just introduce you, Rishabh. We have like a small surprise for you. The surprise is Rishabh and the things that he's going to explain you. So he's part of one of the sponsorships that we have. He's from Nataly app. The thing is that as we are doing an online symposium, let's say we cannot do it in person right now due to the COVID, we try to do some like a symposium interactive. So we found this news app, interactive news app, and they just created content for us. So I will send some content through the chat right now for you to check. they did it for free for us for this symposium. But also, as I said, he has a small surprise that you will win 30 euros through Amazon, like a bonjour Amazon. So all yours, Rishabh. Thank you very much for this, for everything, for organizing this and collaborate with us. So all yours.
Thank you so much, Monica, for having me as well. I'm super excited, by the way. I think I listened to the entire conversation, the entire presentation, actually very insightful. And if I can get my hands on that presentation as well, I would love to sort of dig slightly deeper into that as well. Completely on board with the fact that women have have always been traditionally and currently underrepresented in so many different areas where they can actually sort of provide value. So all hands up. Now, thank you so much for having me, guys. I'll just give you a quick introduction about myself as well. I am the co-founder for Nittle, which stands for News in Three Lines. I've been living here in Barcelona for the last 7 years. So I will I kind of joke about this, but my Spanglish is better than my Spanish, right? Being an expat and whatnot. But I think for the convenience of the presentation, I will continue to speak in English. Other than that, I'm responsible for the business side of things for Nittle, and at this point, I would like to share my screen. Uh, right. Um, At this point, I would like to sort of introduce you to what Nittle is, right? It stands for News in Three Lines. And if you see here, we call ourselves a socially conscious news app, right? What is Nittle? It is an AI-powered news app that's designed to translate empathy into impact. And how we are doing that is by the factor of introducing action points, action items within the application to help you while you're reading news to be able to take action in the issues that matter to you most. Now, these actions could be anything between donation to actually being a part of a cause vis-a-vis volunteer, right? The application itself, and there's just a a small snippet in terms of what you can do with the application, is you can read news in 3 lines. Now that these 3 lines that you see on the left have been summarized by our AI. You can see right in the middle, there is an action button right here, which basically asks you to participate in different areas of news. And this is all created by our in-house team. And on the third, you can also debate and interact with the news in different fashions, one of them being a debate, where effectively bring about different people from the industry. Now, industry is, they could be scientists, they could be advocacy specialists, politicians, or even professors. And we bring about a conversation on topics which are of importance in the current society. And I think one of the topics that Natalie mentioned is a very important topic that needs to be highlighted and spoken about, I think, more often than we are doing right now. Now, in terms of the next step, guys, this is the part that we want you to sort of do from your side, and would love all of you to kind of take part in this quiz. The idea is that you use this link. Now, I'm not sure if you can possibly type this link directly on your phones, or if Monica can perhaps provide the link on the chat, where effectively this link would take you to the Apple Store or the Play Store, whichever you have, and you can download the application for free. As part of this symposium, we've also decided to give you 30 credits for free, so you will have a seamless experience kind of going through the application, interacting with the application, and listen to podcasts or interact with quizzes and whatnot. Second, we would like you to sort of course, listen to the selected talks of the symposium, and after the talks, we have a special quiz for you guys, which you can interact within the application, answer and whatnot. But this will be live at about 3 o'clock. So what we would like you guys to do is at about 3:30, before the next break starts, we want you to take part in the quiz, submit your answers, so that the lucky winner gets that Amazon coupon. Just for that ease, by the way, guys, super easy. You download the application, you go through the onboarding. It's very instinctual, so there's nothing explaining there. But so that you're able to sort of maneuver your way through the application. You swipe left, you go to the premium content of the application, you select the quiz, and then you participate in the quiz that we have created for you. And that would be very clear so that you don't get lost. But ultimately, we want you to become a part of the Nittle community as well, because one of the things that we are trying to do with the application is change the paradigm of interaction with media, where people are not just consuming news passively, but actively participating in causes that they're reading about. And that's where I will stop sharing my screen. And if you've got any questions, anything else that anybody would like to ask, I'm there. Thank you, Monica.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Rishabh. As well, I will be sending, as I said, through the chat, some debates that you created, that you put on the app for us. So people can, as you said, interact with us. They can see the others' opinions. I believe maybe we all think that we have the same opinion, but there we will see if everyone here in this session, in this symposium, thinks the same, for example, as you presented about artificial intelligence or not. So,
absolutely.
Thank you very much. Let's see if artificial intelligence, I hope no, it's scary for these people here and the attendees or not, if they are excited. So
No,
really happy to see your content.
Definitely. And I'll just add to that, right? Because one of the things that I heard very recently is the fact that AI could be very scary, but I think it is that relationship that we have with technology that makes it either scary or less scary. How do we use it is the important part. So instead of reducing our dependency, we kind of use it as a tool that then kind of keeps your mind sharp and keeps AI, I would say, useful.
So deep. I like it.
Well, thank you so much, guys, and good luck for the quiz.
Super. Yeah. Thank you very much. Now all yours, Sarah. I think you can present the posters. I mean the link posters.
Yeah, we have. I'm asking for. Yeah, Tamara, please put the link on there. Okay, now we have a 5 minutes break. It was 15, but now it's a 5 minutes break. And you have here in the chat the link for the posters, and also you can use the AirMeet Remo rooms just for networking, or you have all the rooms named by the using the number of the posters, and you can use that for talking with the presenters. Okay, so let's meet on 5 minutes. You have all the information in the chat also, and I hope you are enjoying this as much as I'm doing. Bye.